I'm Alessandra Barrett, Senior Content Editor for JOC, and I'm with Hilary Garner, President of Garner Enterprises and panelist at this year's 2019 LogTech. Thanks for joining me today, Hilary.
Thank you for having me.
Can you tell me a bit about the Rubber Meets Ocean panel, where we're looking at technology's impact on cargo?
I was really interested in participating in this panel going back a few years and watching the developments that are happening across that point of intersection, and back in 2016 when the VGM came into play. So Solus and IMO got very concerned about the ballast. And I started looking at this with respect to different technology developments at the time and wondered whether there was an opportunity to bring in a blockchain solution that would enable truck drivers to in-gate into the ports seamlessly if other systems failed. So when I saw this panel come up, I expressed to Eric that it would be very interesting to me to kind of see what's changed in the last few years. Great thing about today's been, having BCO, having VC, having drayage operators, both heavily ingrained on the export side, but also on the import side. So the flow and management of those containers and where the visibility falls apart and what are the gaps in the system that persist today, and how can tech be advantageous to shift those. It's a very opaque environment. And the feedback that we've had from the panelists has been, tremendously interesting because the insights are varied. And I think ultimately we do understand that that point of interchange is a place that we need more transparency. How can we get transparency across the supply chain without people feeling that they're compromising their business models and losing their competitive edge?
What do you think is necessary to take the next step?
One of the themes that comes up throughout these discussions is that we have an enormous amount of investment and potential investment in tech to address, that black hole of visibility. Where should we be focusing that tech? But at the same time, the tech in and of itself can perhaps persist a problem that's already there, and that's fragmentation of what's actually happening at the port. These problems are happening in silos, and those silos are opaque to one another. So if the investments that wind up being made or are pursued don't address or have the foresight or the confidence and trust with one another, the participating and competing interests that sometimes, if they don't have the confidence that they're all there to try and solve the same problem, I think that we could foreseeably wind up fragmenting an already fragmented, difficult situation in the port terminals. And of course, not all port terminals are run by the same port terminal operators. And how are you going to bridge that gap of certain ports around the world have one mandate, and they perhaps make good investments or create good bonding relationships with various drayage operators. And so that transparency becomes something that's fluid. Tech can be involved in participating and fleshing out how it should look if the conversations are open-ended and not confrontational. But I think one of the different, I was having this discussion actually yesterday before we had the panel, and everybody went to high school, and some of us choose to go on to college or university. I'm Canadian, and I remember distinctly, I'll never forget this, talking to the guidance counselor and trying to get some insight into okay, well, what's going to be expected of me next year? It's a huge leap. You're leaving the province or going to a different state, and and then they prepare you with all this information, and then you get to this next institution, this next huge chapter of your life, and you go and speak to what would be of the same ilk person at that institution who says, no, we've never heard of any of that. I don't know who told you that. That's not how we operate here, so forget everything you've ever been told and come and do it like this. I feel like the same sort of gap happens between that drayage piece and the port operators, and then of course the shipping lines that have to be addressed. And everything, this is one of the oldest industries in the world, and it's now become so connected, and we have such a global community, and we expect goods to be available from all over the world, at the drop of a hat without taking the time to really understand. Let's all step into one another's shoes for a minute and see what it is in your business process and operation that we need to understand better in order for our piece to work fluidly with you, and then vice versa.